The twin suns were setting behind the crimson dunes, painting the sky in gold and blood. Commander Eli Rain moved through the desert dust, his armored boots leaving deep marks in the sand. The radio in his helmet crackled, calling his code name again and again, but he ignored it, his eyes fixed on the smoke far ahead. There had been a crash, a big one, and the military had sent him to check for survivors or tech worth saving. But as he walked closer, Eli could tell this was no human wreck. The metal was curved like bone, glowing faintly blue even under the dying light. Strange symbols shimmered across the hull, alive, breathing, like veins of a living creature. He raised his rifle, scanning the wreckage. The air smelled like burned ozone and something sweet, almost like flowers after rain. His visor flickered, sensors struggling to read the energy field around the crash. Whatever this ship was, it wasn't from Earth, and it wasn't friendly territory. A low hum vibrated through the sand. Pieces of broken hull shifted and a door hissed open, spilling silver mist into the air. Eli stepped back, rifle ready, heart racing under the armor. He waited, tense, but no attack came. Instead, a weak voice echoed from inside, soft, trembling, and hauntingly human. "Help me." The sound froze him. For a moment he thought it was a recording, but then it came again, a whisper carried by the wind. Slowly, Eli entered the ship, his flashlight cutting through the smoke and dust. Inside, the walls pulsed with light, like the heartbeat of a dying animal. Bodies of alien soldiers lay scattered, their armor cracked, their faces hidden behind glass masks. And then he saw her. She was lying beneath a fallen metal beam, her body half covered in glowing dust. Her skin shimmered pale silver, her hair long and white as frost, flowing like threads of light. Her eyes opened when he approached, bright violet, filled with pain and pride. Eli hesitated, his training screaming at him to leave. This was an enemy, a member of a race that had destroyed human colonies. But she looked fragile, lost, barely breathing. He knelt beside her, his gloves brushing away the ash from her face. She flinched, a flicker of fear crossing her eyes, then spoke again, voice barely a breath. "Claim me. Human." Eli froze. He didn't understand, not at first. Was it a trap, a strange alien language, or a dying wish? But the words were clear, spoken in perfect English. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers touching the metal of his armor. For a moment, a spark of light ran between them, glowing like lightning under glass. Eli felt it deep inside his chest, not pain, not shock, but something ancient, something that made his heartbeat slow and heavy. He pulled his hand away, standing tall, his face hidden behind the visor. "I'm not here for that," he said quietly, adjusting his weapon. "I'm here on duty." She tried to speak again, but her voice broke into a whisper. "Please, they'll come for me." He looked at her. This alien woman, beautiful, strange, and broken. He wanted to help, but orders were orders. Any contact with alien survivors was forbidden. The mission log was already recording everything. Still, when he turned to leave, her eyes caught his again. There was no hatred there, only sadness, a kind of surrender he didn't understand. Outside, the wind was rising. Sandstorm clouds were forming, and his dropship was signaling for pickup. He looked once more at the glowing wreck, the faint light flickering like a dying heartbeat. He spoke softly to himself, duty first, and walked away. But the whisper followed him through the storm. "Claim me, human." That night, back at the outpost, Eli couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, her violet eyes, her silver skin. He heard her voice, that single word, claim. He told himself it was just guilt, or maybe curiosity. But deep down, something inside him knew. He had left behind more than a survivor. He had left behind the beginning of something that could change everything. Outside the base, under the alien night sky, the wrecked ship still pulsed faintly in the dark. And somewhere deep within it, the alien princess opened her eyes again, whispering the same word into the silence. "Claim me, human." Eli sat alone in his bunk, staring at the flickering lights above him. The outpost was silent except for the hum of engines and the occasional buzz of comms. His team had already logged the crash report, marking it as enemy debris, no survivors. But he knew that was a lie. Somewhere in that wreck, the alien woman was still alive. Her whisper still echoed inside his head, Claim me. Human. He tried to shut it out, to remind himself who he was, a soldier, not a savior. Yet, the thought of her eyes, those glowing violet eyes, kept haunting him like a ghost. Outside, the wind howled across the desert. The sensors blinked with red warnings of another approaching storm. He looked at the screen and saw the coordinates of the crash site glowing faintly. It would be suicide to go back there. Command would call it betrayal. But something deeper than duty pulled at him, something human. He whispered to himself, just one more look, and grabbed his rifle. The desert night was cruel and cold. The sky burned with twin moons, their pale light guiding him through shifting dunes. Every step he took left a trail the storm would soon erase. By the time he reached the crash, the ship looked even more ghostly. The metal had cooled, its glow fading into a dull blue pulse. He entered through the same broken door, flashlights sweeping across twisted corridors. The air was heavier now, filled with smoke and silence. Then he heard it again, the faint sound of breathing. He followed it through a narrow passage. The alien princess lay beneath a different beam now, one side of her body dark with blood. Her chest rose weakly, but her eyes opened when she sensed him. "You came back," she whispered, voice trembling like wind in glass. He knelt beside her, lifting the beam with all his strength, armor servos whining in protest. She gasped as air filled her lungs again. Eli tore a strip from his field cloth and wrapped it around her wound. Her skin was warm, glowing faintly under his touch. "Why?" she asked. He didn't answer, only muttered, "Because I couldn't sleep." As he lifted her, the mark from before reappeared on his wrist, brighter this time. A ring of silver light burned through his armor plate, linking to her pulse. She looked at it in shock. "You accepted my vow," she breathed. "Our lives are bound now." He frowned, not understanding. "What vow?" She looked away. "A vow of protection, sealed by touch." He tried to laugh, but the sound was hollow. "Great, magic now," he said quietly. "Just what I needed." Outside, thunder rolled across the sand. He carried her out, each step heavier than the last. Drones patrolled the skies, their red beams sweeping the wreckage. Eli hid behind a jagged wing, pulling her close as the drones passed overhead. She pressed a hand to his chest, whispering strange words in her language. His visor flickered, and his heart rate slowed, his body temperature dropped. "Energy shield," she whispered. "They can't see us now." He stared at her, shocked by her power. But her face was pale, weak. She was giving everything she had to protect him. They moved again through the storm. Lightning flashed across the horizon, painting the desert in white fire. By the time they reached a cave near the ridge, she had passed out. He laid her down, removing his helmet, breathing hard. For a moment, he just looked at her. Alien, beautiful, fragile. She looked nothing like the monsters in the war propaganda. Her face was soft, her lips trembling even in sleep. He reached out, brushing a strand of silver hair from her cheek. The mark on his arm pulsed again, matching her heartbeat. He sat beside her, rifle across his knees, staring into the darkness. "What are you really?" he whispered. No answer came, only the soft rhythm of her breathing. Outside, the storm raged on, hiding them from the world. Eli knew he had crossed a line that could never be erased. He was no longer just a soldier following orders. He was a man who had chosen to save the enemy. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that single choice would change the fate of two worlds. The storm outside had faded into a soft hum, the twin moons rising high over the red desert. Inside the cave, faint blue light shimmered from the alien woman's skin, casting ripples across the stone walls. Eli sat near the entrance, helmet off, eyes fixed on her sleeping form. He had treated her wounds with his med gel, though human tech barely worked on alien tissue. Still, the bleeding had stopped, replaced by that strange silver glow beneath her skin. It was as if her body healed itself with light. He checked his wrist again. The same mark burned faintly there, a circle of intertwining lines glowing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Every time she breathed, his pulse quickened, like their bodies had synced without permission. He didn't understand it, but he couldn't deny the strange calm it gave him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. When she stirred, her eyes opened slowly, soft violet light reflecting the fire he'd built. For a moment she looked terrified, then recognized him. "You stayed," she whispered weakly. Eli gave a small nod. Didn't have much choice, he said quietly. You kind of glow in the dark. A faint smile touched her lips, the first real emotion he had seen from her. My name is Sarai, she said, her voice smooth like wind over crystal. Princess of Valora. Eli raised an eyebrow. Royalty? Huh, figures. She studied him carefully. And you? Human, what is your name? Commander Eli Rain, Earth Federation. He replied, adjusting his armor plate. She looked away, eyes filled with sadness. So the war still burns between our worlds. He hesitated. It never really stopped. For a while they sat in silence. Only the crackle of the small fire echoed through the cave. Then Sarai's eyes fell on the glowing symbol on his wrist. You carry my bond, she said softly. It connects our life forces. Eli frowned. You mean that light show wasn't just static? She shook her head slowly. It is an ancient vow, a protection ritual. When I touched you, it chose you. Eli leaned back against the wall, half amused, half uneasy. So, what? I'm your bodyguard now. She closed her eyes. More than that. If one of us dies, the other follows. The words sank into him like cold water. He stared at her in disbelief. You've got to be kidding. Her silence was answer enough. He ran a hand through his hair, muttering, Great. I rescue one alien princess and end up cursed. Sarai's expression softened. It is not a curse, human. It is fate. Eli laughed under his breath. Yeah, fate always picks the worst timing. A sudden noise outside made him grab his rifle. He motioned for her to stay quiet, creeping toward the cave mouth. Through the sand haze, a fleet of red lights moved across the desert. Drones, scanning, hunting. He cursed under his breath, pulling back quickly. They're searching for you, he whispered. She nodded, voice shaking. My people will not stop. They fear what I carry. What do you carry? He asked. She hesitated, her fingers brushing the center of her chest, where light pulsed like a heartbeat. The heart of Valora, she whispered. A living crystal, power of 1,000 stars. Eli stared. You mean a weapon? No, she said, a key to rebuild what was lost. For a long moment, neither spoke. The cave filled with the low hum of her energy, mingling with the desert wind. He finally said, Then we better make sure they don't find you. Her eyes widened slightly. You would protect me, after what my people did to yours. Eli looked at her, his gaze firm but calm. You're not your people, and I'm not my orders, he said simply. Sarai stared at him like she couldn't believe what she heard. For a moment, her lips trembled as if she wanted to say something, but instead she whispered, Thank you, Eli Rain. As the night deepened, the fire dimmed. She leaned back against the cave wall, her light fading softly with sleep. Eli watched her for a long time, feeling the warmth of the bond pulse through his arm. Somewhere deep inside, something had shifted. She was no longer the enemy, and he was no longer just a soldier. Two lives now tied together by fate. Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant engines. The hunt had begun again, and the galaxy was about to change forever. Dawn crept across the red horizon like a slow-moving fire. Eli woke first, the mark on his wrist glowing faintly, warning him that Sarai was still weak but alive. He packed the last of his supplies, checking the rifle and the oxygen cells. When he looked back, she was watching him, her violet eyes calm yet heavy with worry. They will come soon, she said. My people, and yours. He nodded quietly. I figured. Outside, the wind carried a strange hum, the kind that came from hovercrafts slicing through air. He moved to the cave entrance, using his visor to zoom across the dunes. There they were, black ships flying low, leaving trails of dust and lightning behind. Scouts, he muttered. If they find us, we're done. Sarai touched his shoulder, her fingers soft and cold. There is a ridge 2 hours east, she whispered. Old ruins of Valora, they may shield us. Eli didn't ask how she knew, he just nodded. Sometimes you didn't question miracles when survival depended on them. They moved fast through the sand, the sun rising higher, burning the desert in gold. Sarai stumbled once, clutching her chest as the glow under her skin flickered. Eli caught her, steadying her against his armor. You're burning up, he said. It is the bond, she breathed. It draws strength from you, but it also feeds your life. He frowned. That's not how teamwork usually works. She smiled faintly. Then you must be strong for both of us. They pressed on until the first ruins came into view. Tall stone spires half buried in the sand, carved with symbols that shimmered faintly when sunlight touched them. The ground hummed with old energy, echoing through his boots. This place, Sarai whispered, was once the seat of the Celestials, my ancestors. Before he could ask more, his visor beeped, motion detected. Eli dragged her behind a collapsed column. Moments later, a drone swept overhead, its red eye scanning the ground. He aimed his rifle and fired once, the bullet striking the sensor core with perfect precision. The machine fell smoking into the dust, but the signal was already sent. He cursed under his breath. They know. Sarai closed her eyes, murmuring in her alien tongue. The sand around the drone shimmered, its metal melting into liquid silver. She opened her eyes again, weak and trembling. It will delay them, not stop them, she said. Eli tightened his grip on his weapon. Then we keep moving. As they passed through the ruins, Sarai touched one of the walls. The carvings lit up like stars, forming a map across the stone. This, she whispered, is a sanctuary built before the wars. If we reach its heart, we may find refuge. Eli studied the map, memorizing every line. Then that's where we go, he said firmly. The sun began to fade when they reached a valley of broken towers. A distant roar rolled across the sands. Eli turned and saw dust clouds rising, gunships. He pulled Sarai behind cover as plasma bolts scorched the ground. The heat shook the ruins, stones crumbling around them. He fired back, precise and calm, each shot cutting through the smoke. Sarai lifted her hands, her energy flaring bright, forming a shield of light around them. The bolts hit the barrier and scattered like fireflies. But the effort drained her, her light flickering like a dying flame. Sarai, he shouted, don't overdo it. She smiled weakly. You humans speak of duty, now you will learn ours. The final blast shattered the ridge behind them. Eli threw himself over her, shielding her from falling debris. For a moment there was only silence. Then he heard her whisper, soft and broken. You risked yourself again. He answered without thinking. Guess we're both terrible at following orders. She looked at him, eyes glimmering with something that wasn't fear anymore. Perhaps fate chose well, she said gently. When night fell, the attackers retreated. Eli and Sarai remained hidden among the ruins. Smoke rose in the distance, the war still echoing far beyond their sight. She leaned against his shoulder, exhausted but alive. He stared up at the stars, their reflections dancing in her eyes. Tomorrow they'll come again, he said quietly. Then we move tomorrow, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. And under the endless alien sky, bound by light and destiny, a human soldier and an alien princess prepared for a war neither of them had chosen. But together, they would face it. The night stretched long and silent. The stars above shimmered like cold embers scattered across black glass. Eli sat near the dying fire, cleaning his rifle, while Sarai slept beside him, her light faint and steady. He thought about the mission report he never sent, about the orders he had already broken. Somewhere far away, command would be waiting for his signal, wondering why a loyal soldier had gone dark. He looked at his glowing wrist, the symbol that tied his life to hers, and wondered if duty still meant the same thing anymore. When dawn rose, Sarai stirred, her voice soft and tired. There is something ahead, she said. Beyond the ridge lies the ancient outpost of Valora, where my people once joined with yours. Eli frowned. Joined, not fought. She nodded slowly. Before betrayal, before the wars. He packed their gear, and together they walked through the narrow canyons. Broken towers rose like the bones of a forgotten civilization, their surfaces covered in faded carvings of both alien and human hands. At the center stood a sealed chamber, half buried in sand. Eli brushed the dust from its door and saw a faint insignia, part alien crest, part human eagle. He stepped back in disbelief. This is Federation tech. Sarai placed her palm against the door, and it opened with a soft hiss. Inside, golden light poured through transparent walls, revealing an ancient fusion core pulsing like a heart. The Heart Nexus, Sarai whispered, built to unite two empires. He stared at it, mesmerized, and destroyed by both. She walked closer, touching the glowing core. It still breathes, she said. Its power could send a signal across the galaxy. Eli realized what she meant. A beacon, to call your people. She looked at him sadly. Or to warn them never to return. He circled the chamber, eyes tracing old control panels. One of the terminals blinked with human code, asking for command authorization. He could use it to call the fleet, to tell them where she was, to finish the war once and for all. The thought burned in his mind like fire. Sarai watched him in silence. At last she said, "You are torn between your duty and your heart." He looked at her sharply. "Don't talk about my heart." But she only smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "Then speak of your soul." Her words struck deeper than any weapon. He slammed his fist against the console, sparks flying. "I swore to protect my people," he said. "But if I call them here, they'll kill you." She stepped closer, the light of the reactor reflecting in her violet eyes. "Then do not call them," she whispered. "Choose me. Choose peace." Her hand touched his chest, right over the bond mark that pulsed through his armor. The air between them glowed, threads of silver light linking their bodies. He felt her heartbeat inside his own, the warmth of her life flooding through him. For one moment, everything else disappeared. The war, the orders, the noise. There was only her voice, trembling with fear and hope. "Claim me, human, not as a slave, not as an enemy, but as one who stands beside you." Eli's breath caught, the words breaking something inside him. He wanted to answer, to reach for her, but the alarms began to sound. The scanners had detected movement, incoming ships. Sarai's light flared, her voice calm though her eyes shimmered with tears. "They have found us," she said, "and now your choice must be made." Eli looked at the console, then at her, then back again. If he activated the reactor, it could either power her beacon or destroy the valley completely. Duty whispered one answer, his heart whispered another. He raised his hand over the controls. "I'll make the call," he said softly, "but it'll be mine." As the thunder of engines filled the air above, Sarai's fingers brushed his. Whatever came next would decide the fate of both worlds. The light from the core surged brighter, wrapping them in gold and silver fire. 2 lives, 2 choices, 1 heartbeat. And when he looked into her eyes, he no longer saw an alien princess or an enemy. He saw a reflection of everything humanity could become. The moment of decision had come, and the galaxy held its breath. The valley shook as thunder rolled across the sky. Dark shapes descended from the clouds, warships marked with both human and alien symbols, engines screaming through the dust. Eli stood in front of the glowing fusion core, his rifle tight in his hands, his armor flashing warning lights. Sarai stood beside him, the bond mark on her chest pulsing brighter with every heartbeat. The air around them shimmered with energy, the heart nexus roaring like a living sun. "They're coming for both of us," Eli said quietly, scanning the ridges. She nodded, calm but pale. 2 empires chasing ghosts of power. Outside, the first blast struck, shaking the ground, sand exploding in waves of fire. Eli pulled her behind the reactor wall, returning fire through the smoke. His shots cut through enemy drones, sparks lighting the storm. But for every one he dropped, 2 more appeared, their wings burning like black fire in the sky. Sarai raised her hands, the air trembling as silver light formed around them. Her power lashed out, creating a shimmering shield that deflected plasma bolts like rain on glass. Eli felt the pulse of her strength flow through the bond, his armor systems surging with energy not built by humans. He moved faster, hit harder, every movement guided by her rhythm. But he could feel her weakening, each blast dimming her glow. "Stop, you'll burn yourself out," he shouted. She smiled faintly. "Then I will burn bright." A ship broke through the clouds above, engines roaring, weapons charging. Eli aimed for its core and fired, his rounds tearing through its wing, sending it crashing into the canyon. The explosion painted the sky orange, heat washing over them. But then the human frequency cut through the chaos, his commander's voice. "Eli Rain, stand down. We have orders to secure the alien." He froze, the voice slicing through him like a blade. He looked at Sarai, her eyes wide with sorrow. "They will kill you," she whispered. He lowered his head, whispering, "Not while I breathe." He ran to the console, typing commands into the old system. The reactor began to hum louder, its energy climbing toward overload. Sarai realized what he was doing. Eli, no. If you ignite it, you'll die. He looked back, his face hidden behind the cracked visor. Someone has to choose. She stumbled forward, trying to reach him, but the ground shook violently as enemy troops landed nearby. Their footsteps echoed through the ruins, metallic and cold. Eli turned toward her one last time, his voice steady. You said the bond ties our lives, right? She nodded, tears glowing on her cheeks. Then we end it together, he said softly. He pulled her into his arms, the mark between them flaring like a star. Their combined energy surged through the heart nexus, flooding the chamber with light. The soldiers outside shouted as sensors failed and machines overloaded. Within seconds, the entire valley glowed like molten glass. Sarai's voice trembled against his chest. You could have left me. Eli smiled beneath his helmet. Yeah, but duty doesn't mean abandoning someone who trusts you. Her light grew brighter, wrapping around him like silk. He whispered his last words against the rising roar, duty first. The fusion core exploded into pure radiance. A shockwave spread across the desert, wiping away every trace of war and metal. For a heartbeat, everything stood still. Sky, sand, fire, all frozen in the brilliance of their sacrifice. And then, silence. When the dust finally settled, the valley was gone, replaced by a glassy crater glowing faintly under twin suns. At its center stood two intertwined figures turned to crystal, their hands still locked together, light pulsing gently between them. No one knew what power had awakened, but the scanners later called it impossible, a human and an alien sharing one life signal. They became legend, the tale of the soldier who chose peace over orders, and the princess who chose love over fear. And across the stars, wherever humans and Valorans met, soldiers would whisper the same words before battle. Duty first, but never without honor. Centuries passed like silent waves over the desert of glass. The valley where Eli Rain and Princess Sarai had vanished became a holy scar upon the world. No ship dared to land there. No scanner could read beyond its shimmering surface. It was said that beneath that crystal plane, two lights still pulsed together. One human blue, one alien silver. Stories spread through outposts and colonies, carried by traders and soldiers. Some called it myth, others swore they had seen it with their own eyes. A pair of radiant shapes drifting above the dunes at night, moving as one beneath the twin suns. The legend grew, and with it, something inside both civilizations began to change. The Federation, once built on conquest, now spoke of restraint and unity. The Valoran Empire, once proud and cruel, began to whisper of peace instead of power. Young cadets studied the last mission log of Commander Eli Rain, a corrupted file found near the ruins. Only one line survived, glowing on the cracked screen. Duty first, but never without love. Far from that sacred desert, in orbit above a quiet blue moon, a research team uncovered fragments of alien human technology. Energy readings matched those of the heart nexus, though the core had been lost forever. The scientists couldn't explain how it still functioned. Every time they activated a sample, two heartbeats echoed in the sensors, one steady and human, the other slow and melodic. It was as if their souls still whispered through the machines they once touched. On Valora, an ancient order of priest engineers built a monument of light. At its base, they carved the words of their princess. He did not claim me, yet he claimed my heart. Pilgrims came from both species, standing side by side, watching the monument glow at sunset. No one spoke during the ceremony. They simply listened to the hum of the wind, believing it carried his voice. Among the stars, a new alliance was forged. The Treaty of Rain-Sarai united two empires once destined for war. Its emblem bore two hands reaching across light, and every officer sworn to service touched that emblem and repeated his words. I serve for duty, I fight for peace. But legends never end so easily. Decades later, explorers mapping the outer dunes caught a faint signal from deep beneath the glass. It wasn't static or a distress call. It was a voice, soft and clear. Eli, it whispered, the stars are quiet now. And then another voice answered, rough but warm. Not quiet, Sarai, just listening. The recordings stunned the scientific council. They argued for years whether it was real or some strange echo trapped in crystal memory. But those who had heard it knew the truth. Some bonds never fade, not with time, not with death. At night, travelers still tell the story beside campfires. They speak of the soldier who defied orders, and the princess who taught him to see beyond war. Of two souls bound by light, who turned duty into hope. And when the wind rises and the glass dunes glow, people raise their eyes to the stars and whisper the old blessing. Claim nothing, protect everything. Because somewhere beyond the edge of known space, a human spirit and an alien heart still walk together beneath endless suns, guarding the peace they died to create. And the galaxy remembers their promise forever.